The US has offered to develop AMCA jet engine together, which they denied previously. Currently, DRDO is in talks with Safran. What do you think the US will? Why? What do you think? US take 180 degrees turn. Do we go with France Safran? Abhimanyu says, I recently read US offering India to jointly manufacture jet engine for our AMCA. AMCA is the fifth generation jet fighter that India is currently developing. So, why making and manufacturing jet engines is so difficult for India, especially when considered that India already has cryogenic engines and indigenously developed missile launcher systems? Okay, let's deal with the second question first. Why is it so hard to manufacture jet engines? Because it's a very difficult technology. Only a handful of countries have mastered it, and that process has taken decades. Decades, 7 or so decades. The British have the Rolls Royce engines, the Americans have the General Electric engines, the French have the Snecma or Safran engines. The Chinese, the Russians have their own Saturn and other engines, turbofan and all those engines. And the Chinese are trying to develop reasonably good engines, the W whatever series of engines. They are not quite successful thus far, but they are making significant strides in the right direction. It takes a huge amount of research and development and trial and error and iterative progress to develop a good jet engine. It's a very long, difficult process. And the reason for that is that jet engines are very complicated machines, extremely high temperatures, which would melt most metals. And yet, you need the turbofan to withstand those temperatures and not disintegrate. That's why I mean, for instance, we had the Fox-Bat, MiG 25, was it? The Fox-Bat, which could travel at Mach 2 or higher at very high altitudes. If you took it to its maximum speed, it would fly. But when it comes back and lands, you would have to replace the engines because they would be ruined by that time. That's how it was. So jet engines are they operate at very high temperatures, at very high stresses, and that's why it's so difficult to build them. You need to come up with exotic materials, composite materials, or you need to build those jet engine turbine blades out of a single crystal of metal, which is technology that most countries can't even imagine having, right? So that's why it is so difficult. The Americans have been developing their jet engines, the General Electric engines, for decades, and so on. And the same goes for the UK and the Russians and the French. The Chinese are still trying to catch up. They're still at least a generation behind the top nations. And in India, we have we have DRDO, and it has a lab in Bangalore, I believe, which does research with jet engines. We have a Kaveri engine, which is not quite right for our fighter aircraft. The amount of thrust it produces is approximately 70 or so kilonewtons. For a fighter plane, we would need at least 90 kilonewtons or so. And for something like the AMCA or the twin engine deck based fighter, etc., you would need very powerful jet engines with a thrust of about 125 or so kilonewtons or thereabouts. So that's the kind of output we need, and the Kaveri engine hasn't been able to achieve that output. So India has now decided that for the AMCA, Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, the fifth engine fighter we are building, the initial Mark 1 model of this plane will have General Electric American engines. So that in the Mark 2 will have Indian engines. So then for that, we need to develop an Indian engine. And for that, we need a foreign cooperation, maybe transfer of technology, whatever. It doesn't matter. Pay the money, get the technology, and then take it forward. So India is considering an offer from France, Safran. And also nowadays, like you say, the Americans have made an offer of developing the technology jointly. So I believe the technology they are offering is will give us a jet engine that has which has an output of about 110 kilonewtons or something. But I think we need 125 ideally. So let's see how it goes. I would say that India should go with the French because the French are more trustworthy. The Americans don't have a very good track record when it comes to cooperation with India. So one has to be careful. You're investing good money, and we don't want to lose that, and we need the technology as soon as possible. So I would prefer. I mean, at the end of the day, it's for the government to make a choice, make a call. They know better than us. They will know information that we don't have. But my gut feeling is that France would be a better choice for India.